week because wasn't feeling that great. Thank you for being so patient with me. But I have a very interesting and deep topic that we're going to talk about tonight. Shadow work philosophy is all about helping you guys with those of you that are new to shadow work and those of you that may be stuck in your shadow work, okay? For those of you guys that don't know what shadow work is, I'll go through it just a little bit. Shadow work is actually a term that was coined by Carl Jung back many, many moons ago. It is a part of psychology. It is a part of integrating the shadow self, the part of you that you're told to hide that is not good, that you need to keep it way back there. It's integrating that in with the light to make yourself whole, to heal yourself. Shadow work is a vital part of you moving forward as an adult. It's also a vital part of you healing, you moving forward spiritually, you growing. So tonight, you ready? We're going to talk about something that everybody has problems with, including myself. I'm getting better, and it's taken me a while. It's taken me years, I'm not going to lie. But we're going to talk about boundaries. We're going to talk about boundaries. Are y'all ready? Y'all ready? So I've got my notes pulled up behind me so I don't lose my place, and hopefully I'll stay, on topic. But let's talk about boundaries. Your clairsentient gifts, and everybody has the clairs, every one of you. Don't let people here on TikTok or other social media aspects tell you that you have to be born with this or born as this or whatever. Literally every human being has clairs. You have them, I promise. Clairsentient gifts are something that are very intense and very deep. And if you are trying to grow your gifts, grow yourself spiritually, or even just grow yourself as an adult, as a human, you have to learn to set boundaries. You have to learn to set boundaries. Because if you don't learn to set boundaries, two things are going to happen. You're going to continue to get walked over and be in toxic relationships, and your spiritual gifts are going to either run away with themselves or they are going to shut down and you will lose them. So we're going to talk about boundaries. Now, the problem is that a lot of people don't understand how to set clear boundaries, because we are taught when we are younger that there are certain things that are bad, and we are also taught to be people pleasers. We are all taught to be people pleasers. If you grew up with parents who were very toxic, if you grew up with parents who were very intense, who did set hardcore boundaries, probably too hardcore, then chances are you're a people pleaser. You want to make those people proud of you, happy. So you go out of your way to do whatever you can for their approval. If you had a parent who was non-existent, if you had a parent that was, maybe they left when you were younger, you didn't see them a lot. If you had a parent who was more interested in other things than you, chances are you have hardcore boundary issues, because you are a people pleaser. You want that person's attention. You want that person's approval, that person's love. There are so many reasons that we have boundary issues. Some of the things that come with boundary setting are going to include some very hard things. When you start setting boundaries, and you start setting boundaries with yourself first, that's the hardest one. People are actually easy once you start setting boundaries with yourself. One of the main problems that's going to come along with boundaries is that most people are not going to respect them, and you are going to have to cut people off. I want you to think about that for a minute. Most people are not going to respect your boundaries, and you are going to have to cut people off. One of my favorite Alan Watts books, talks actually, you can find it all over the place. It's fantastic. It's called The 4 Ways to the Center. In there, he talks about boundaries, and he talks about how he would rather someone be very authentic with him than to lie. How many times do people ask us to do something or ask us to come over, or they just show up at our door and they say, "Hey, I'm going to come by and visit you." And you're like, "Yeah." How many times do you say yes to things and then go, I don't have time. I can't do that. I don't have time. I can't. I can't. Or you have to hurry up and fumble and make some excuse as to why you can't. How many times? We've all done it. We've all done it more times than we can count. So one of the things that Alan Watts talks about is he says, I would rather someone say, "Hey, I can't hang out with you Thursday because I have blah, blah, blah. I have XYZ. I have plans. I'm busy," whatever it is. I don't have it in me to give you my full attention. However, Friday, I'm open and I would love to hang out with you on Friday because then I can give you my full focus and the time that you deserve. When I first heard that talk, that meant so much to me. That meant so much to me because I realized that I would love for someone to say that to me. I would love for someone to say, "Hey, you know what? Like, I have to work really late on Thursday, so I'm probably going to be tired. How about Saturday? I can give you my full attention." Because isn't that what we truly want from people, is their full attention whenever we are in front of them, when we're hanging out with them, when we're spending time with them? The answer is yes. But setting boundaries is hard because that means that we have to start here and set boundaries with ourselves, meaning that we have to stop trying to people please, meaning that we have to start setting boundaries hardcore with the things that we already do in ourselves. This is the very basis of shadow work with boundaries. So I'm going to talk a little bit about setting boundaries. I also have some shadow work prompts for you guys. And for those of you guys that are watching on TikTok, I am also streaming live on YouTube. So you can go back and watch this on YouTube, write down these shadow work prompts, whatever you would like to do. So one of the things that is going to be the hardest with you in setting boundaries is this. It's going to make you uncomfortable because your whole life you have been conditioned to be a people pleaser. You have been conditioned to say yes when you know damn well that your plate's already full and you can't actually do the thing. You've already been conditioned to tell little white lies just to protect someone else's feelings. You've already been conditioned to not have boundaries. It's not your fault. I want you to listen to that again. It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault, to be honest. It's the world's fault. You've been so conditioned to not have boundaries that when you finally learn and start setting boundaries in a healthy way, it feels so wrong in here. And even as you move along and you are learning how to set hardcore boundaries and you're setting them and you're moving forward and you're growing, there are going to come times when you just still struggle. I've been setting boundaries for several years now, and I still struggle with it sometimes because we all want to be liked. We all want to be loved. We all want people to respect us, to enjoy our company. And when you set boundaries, toxic people will get upset. Listen to that again. When you set boundaries, toxic people will get upset. So, how do you know if you have a toxic relationship going on? Now, this doesn't have to be just a romantic relationship. This can be a friendship. It can be a coworker. It can be a family member. And of course, it can be a romantic relationship. Here are several different ways that you can know that you're in a toxic relationship and where you should set a boundary and say, "No, ma'am. No, sir. No, this is not happening." Okay? When someone is yelling at you, it's okay to say no and to back out of that situation. If someone actively is trying to attack you, whether it's verbally or physically, emotionally, it's okay to say no and have a very hardcore boundary with them. These other ones are going to get tough. You guys ready? We're going to talk about some tough shit. When someone is trying to extort something from you, whether this is information or whatever, it's okay to say no and back the fuck away. When someone is actively trying to betray you, trust your gut. It's okay to say no and walk away. These other ones are going to get a little harder. You ready? Especially for women. When someone is attempting to sexually harass you or harm you or guilt you, it is absolutely okay to say no and walk the fuck away. When someone is trying to do something that violates your personal space, your time, anything that is your personal self, no, and walk the fuck away. Now, this next one right here is going to be really hard for some of you. You ready? This is one that I personally have had to learn very hardcore. Anybody that gets into the public eye in any shape or form has to learn this, and it's a very hard boundary to set still for myself. If you have any type of success in your life, job-wise, social media-wise, maybe you're an actress, a singer, etc., you're going to have someone that tries to steal your light. You're going to have someone that tries to undermine or steal your accomplishments. As a writer, I have had my work plagiarized a few times. I've actually had my work plagiarized where I've had to get an attorney. That level of plagiarism. I know how to play the game at this point in life. When you have someone that tries to steal your light in any way, that is a hardcore no and a cut off. When it comes to dealing with the shadow, there are so many things that you can do to help begin to set boundaries. I'm going to give you a few things that you can say in certain situations. And here's what's funny. When I say them, you're going to instantly have two reactions. One, man, that's a good thing to say. And two, I could never say that. Okay? Whenever you have someone that is trying to get you to do something, be something, go somewhere, whatever, there are a few good things that you can say. The first one is just no. Not interested. You can joke with them and be like, come back at me with a better offer. Sometimes humor is the best policy. I'm not really feeling good with where this conversation is going, so I'm going to excuse myself. I don't really feel great with, where this situation is going, so I'm going to go ahead and back out. And then guess what? You can absolutely walk away. You don't need their permission to protect yourself and to set boundaries. I think this conversation would be better if we had it in private. I think this conversation would be better if we had it over text. I think this conversation would be better, blah, blah, blah. Okay? And stick to that. If you don't care to discuss a relationship issue in public, and your significant other is insisting on doing it in the middle of a crowded restaurant, it is okay for you to get up and walk away. It is absolutely okay for you to get up and walk the fuck away. If you aren't willing to consider my side of things, then I'm not willing to go along with XYZ. I want you to think about all of that. There's a lot of different things that come with being in any type of toxic environment or toxic relationship that causes us to just bend over, that causes us to bow down, to just say, you know what, you're right, it's okay. And the problem is that it happens so much that when we're in a toxic relationship, we get to the point where the toxicity is comforting. It's what we've known for so long This is why you will see people go from one toxic relationship to another. They will latch on to a toxic person like this, one after the other. They will have a job where their boss is toxic to them, their family is toxic to them, because that's how they've learned. So here's a few ways to know if you are in a toxic environment or a toxic relationship. And like I said, this has to do with work, family, friends, significant others, situations, etc. Okay? These are 10 areas where you absolutely need to set boundaries with yourself first and with the other person second. The first one is you are made to feel insignificant or unimportant. If you are in a situation, if you have a relationship with someone where suddenly you are starting to feel on the back burner, where you are starting to feel insignificant or unimportant, the very first thing you need to do is your own shadow work and say this: why am I feeling unimportant? What is going on? What has happened? What has been said, etc., that has triggered me to feel unimportant, to feel insignificant, or to feel like I'm on the back burner? Second boundary you need to set once you set that with yourself is this: you need to acknowledge to the person, hey, look, I'm currently feeling very unappreciated, unacknowledged, put on the back burner, etc. I need to talk about this. Like, we need to talk about this. Chances are a very toxic person is going to get angry at you for that. The second one is this: the other person never validates your feelings. If you talk to the other person and you say, hey, I have an issue with this, I have an issue with that, I'm feeling XYZ, and they never acknowledge your feelings. They gloss over your feelings. They tell you you're overreacting. They tell you you're imagining things, whatever it is to push your feelings aside. That is toxicity. So when this happens, one of the first things you need to do is set the boundary with yourself, as in, why? Why is always going to be a good question. Why? Why am I allowing this? Why is this a thing? What happened that's making me feel like they're not validating my feelings? Now, here's the other thing I want you to think about in this way too. What is it in your partner, your coworker, your boss, your mom, your family, whatever, that is making them invalidate your feelings? You may not ever know the answer to that question, but I want you to look at the situation as a whole, okay? Don't just look at it as them versus you. There is something in that person that is causing them to act this way, okay? Think about it in that way. The next thing you need to do is set that boundary with them and tell them exactly, hang on, my feelings were just invalidated. I need you to understand why I feel the way I feel. Now, here's the thing. You have to be an adult about this. You can't come at them screaming and yelling. You can't come at them with, you motherfucker, you did this, blah, 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 blah. That is instantly going to negate any conversation, okay? So you have to take a deep breath and you have to set that boundary. The next one is this: you constantly worry or are paranoid about that relationship, that friendship, that job, the situation, whatever. You walk on eggshells. You are constantly worried about your relationship with that person, the job, etc. If you are constantly in fear of something happening, that is a toxic relationship. That is a terrible toxic relationship. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk about a little story. Stress does a horrible thing to the body. When you are constantly in a fight or flight mode, that will do horrible things to yourself physically. It can cause heart damage. It can cause all kinds of shit to happen with your nervous system, with your circulatory system. can cause terrible headaches. It can absolutely cause intense physical issues. Just from living in that type of environment for almost 15 years, I am on heart medicine for the rest of my life because of the permanent heart damage that has been caused by a constant fight or flight response. Your body is not meant to live there. So if you are constantly stressed or worried or upset about a situation or a person or a situation that person has caused, that is a horribly toxic relationship. You have to set a boundary with you because you are the only one that holds the key to your own freedom. And I'm going to say that again several different times, so don't think you aren't going to hear that one again. If your partner, your family member, your boss, your coworker, whoever it is, your friend is not willing to compromise in the situation or your relationship, that is a horribly toxic relationship. Any relationship, whether it's work, family, friendship, love, there is give and take. No two people, no groups of people are ever going to agree on everything all the time. How many times have you been with family? Have you been with a significant other? Have you been with friends and said, hey, where do you want to go eat? And they say, well, I don't know, you pick. And then you say, okay, well, how about, Chinese food? Well, I don't want Chinese food. Okay, how about Italian food? I don't want Italian. How about Mexican? I don't want Mexican. How many times have you guys been in that situation right there? They are not willing to compromise. And I know you're like, wait, that doesn't sound really bad. Sometimes they just don't know what they're going to eat. But they could have said, hey, I don't really feel like Chinese or Italian today. Maybe, hamburgers or pizza or something. And if you are that person that always says, I don't know where I want to eat, give some things of like, I'm not quite sure what sounds good, but I do know that, any kind of heavy pasta doesn't sound good this evening. Okay? You ready for the next one? The other person in the situation is continually dismissing or minimizing your concerns. This goes right along with them negating your feelings. If you go to your boss repeatedly and say, hey, I've noticed in the warehouse, there's XYZ and someone's going to get hurt. There's no safety measures or whatever, or we need safety goggles or whatever. And your boss continues to blow you off until someone does get hurt. That is a toxic work environment. That is a horribly if y'all have that environment at work, then you need to be taking it to your boss's boss. You need to quit, whatever you need to do. But you see what I'm saying? If someone is constantly negating your feelings, if they're constantly negating problems or minimizing problems, that is a horribly toxic relationship, situation, job, etc. If you don't feel secure or safe, that's a toxic issue. You can have one of those jobs where you aren't sure on a day-to-day basis if you're going to go in and still have a job. You can have a job where you go to work and you just hope that your coworker is gone today or that your boss is out of town. And you stress and you stress and you stress because you don't feel safe in that job. You don't feel secure in that job. The same goes with family members, with love. If the other person is not willing to take responsibility for their actions or mistakes, and they cannot ever say, hey, you know what? I fucked up. I'm sorry, man. Let me make it up to you. Let me fix it. That's a toxic relationship. I want you to think about that. How many times have you had family members that have hurt your feelings on a very, very deep level, and you have told them, hey, look, man, that was terrible what you did and it hurt my feelings, and they just kind of shrug it off or they change the subject, and they never want to validate that mistake. Or what's even better, and this is usually what happens, is, well, you did this. You said this. They turn it right back on you. How many times has that happened to you? How many times have you talked to a coworker? Have you talked to a boss? Have you talked to a spouse, the person that you're in a relationship with? And as soon as you brought up something, they start to talk about, well, you did this, and you did this, and you did this. That is an unhealthy relationship. You feel completely emotionally drained after spending time with this person in this space with this situation. If you can only stand for 15, 20 minutes at your job and then suddenly you have to take a smoke break and you don't even smoke. If you go home from work every single day, sick, stressed, can't relax, can't sleep, or maybe you love your job and you get stressed the minute you start to get home. You can't wait to leave in the morning for work. If the other person in the situation is not willing to work on communication, that's a toxic relationship. All of those things require hardcore boundaries being set pretty fucking quickly. If someone is trying to use you, they're trying to use what you can do for them. If someone is trying to say, this is really rampant in work environments, if they're trying to use you as a stepping stone to get somewhere else, that is a toxic person, and that's a toxic relationship with that person. You have to set a boundary. I'm going to give you just a little bit of advice, and then we're going to do some shadow work prompts for boundaries. You ready? Many moons ago, back in the mid 90s, I'm old. The very first job I had, I worked for a female managing editor in a big publishing company where all other 12 managing editors, because it was, like I said, a huge company, she was the only female. One of the very first things she taught me was cover your ass and do everything in writing. If you have any one of those signs, if you have any inclination at all that something bad is happening, something is going on, text, email, messaging, that's your best friend. That is your best friend. If you have someone that is continually gaslighting you, when you say, but just yesterday you said XYZ, and they say, I did not, I said ABC. But you know damn well they didn't say ABC. Having something in writing is going to be your best friend, because then whenever your boss says, oh, well, you know, Susie over there said blah, 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 that you said blah, 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 you can say, I'll happily forward you the email. CYA. Cover your ass. Cover your ass. In today's world, with all the technology, there is absolutely no reason why you cannot cover your own ass in multiple ways. Are you guys ready for some shadow work prompts? You guys ready for shadow work prompts for helping you set boundaries in these toxic relationships? Who was the first relationship that you looked up to as a child? Who was the first person that you looked up to as a child? Was that relationship or that person a healthy person? Did you have parents that fought all the time? That's a toxic relationship. And that was the first type of relationship you ever saw. Did you have a parent, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle that you looked up to, but maybe they were a horrible, horrible alcoholic, or they were very abusive, or whatever? How did that relationship or that person impact you? How did that impact you? Now that right there doubles. That is kind of a twofer, okay? Not only is that one with setting boundaries and learning where you have a problem setting boundaries, but it's also some inner child shadow work. It will help you unpack some things that happened when you were a child. What is your earliest memory of being let down by someone that you loved, by someone that you cared about? That scared the crap out of me. Thank you. Noises are scaring the crap out of me today. I had my sugar alarm go off earlier when I was picking up my kid from lunch, and I was talking to my phone. And if anybody had been watching me in the car, you probably would have thought I was having a seizure or conniption fit or something. And if you had heard me, it would have been even worse. I'm just saying. When is your earliest memory of being let down by someone? Who was that person? And how did it affect you growing up? Can you pinpoint a moment from your childhood that made you feel self-conscious, where someone else made you feel self-conscious? Every single one of us that ever was around other children as a kid has moments like this. We probably had a parent, a family member, somebody make us feel uber self-confident, conscious as a kid. Let's talk about some relationship issues. Let's talk about some shadow work prompts for relationship issues. You guys ready? These ones are kind of hard. And like I said, I am streaming live on YouTube. So those of you guys on TikTok, you can go back and watch it on YouTube later if you're not getting to write all these down, okay? Who was the very first person that broke your heart as a kid? This doesn't have to be in a love relationship. We all had our heart broken at a very young age, whether it was seeing our crush on TV dating someone, or whether it was our father continually letting us down. How did this person treat you going forward after they hurt you that deep? And did you ever tell this person how they hurt you? Do you romanticize toxic relationships in the past, in your current life? Do you look back where you had a parent that left, where you had a family member that was very hateful, where you had a very toxic relationship, maybe your first love, your second love, whatever? Do you romanticize those now? Why do you think you do that? What is it? This is the hard shadow work part. What is it in that relationship that makes you look back and romanticize it? Can you identify different shadow traits in yourself that are adding to the toxicity of a relationship? In other words, what have you learned? What have you learned from other toxic relationships that you now do? Because here's the thing, we all have learned behaviors from toxic relationships that we have started to do in our life. Whether it's things we learned as a kid, whether it's things that we learned in relationships, we all have toxic issues that we have started to do because we were shown that's how you are at work, as a family, as a friend, as a relationship. That one right there is one of the hardest and one of the ones that will make you grow the most. If you start to look at your relationships, every one of them, not just love, friendship, family, work, love, all of those relationships, look at it from the outside in. When there's drama, when there's a situation going on, take a step back and look at it as if you were your friend looking in. You were a friend not involved in the situation, looking in. And I don't really even want you to look at the other person. I want you to look at you. What things are you doing that you have learned from a toxic relationship? What is it you're doing? Because we all have toxic issues. We all do. It's just part of it. As you start to see them and you start to recognize them, you can start to back off from them. You can start to release those toxic behaviors that you have learned and become a more healthier, whole person. And I'll tell you what, as you start to release those toxic relationship issues that you do, you will automatically start to set boundaries. Because as you see some of the toxic things that you have learned to do, you're going to start to see them in other people faster. And you will not allow that toxicity to continue. How often do you notice comparing yourself to others? How often do you notice sacrificing things for others? I want you to really think about that one. Because we all face imposter syndrome. We all do at multiple times throughout our life. If you guys don't think that big famous movie stars, that large TikTokers, that writers, that politicians, that your boss, that everybody compares themselves to other people or feels like they're not good enough for certain things at some point in their life, at multiple points in their life, then you are completely wrong. Every single person goes through those issues where they feel like they're not good enough for XYZ. I'm not good enough for this job. I'm not good enough for this person. I'm not good enough because so-and-so has been practicing witchcraft less time than I have, and they seem to be further than me. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough at bowling because I can't ever do this or this, but so-and-so who's only been doing it a year does this and this. We all compare ourselves to other people. We all feel not good enough at times. Some people feel it all the time. Some people feel it here and there. What are some underlying fears or insecurities that allow you to stay in toxic relationships? What are some of those fears and insecurities that continue to let people tromp on your boundaries? If you find that you have people that are continually trying to steal your light, that are continually trying to steal your work, they're trying to take credit for your work, they're trying to use you as a stepping stone, what is it in you that keeps allowing those people in? I want you to really think about that one, because we all let people in our lives that are not there for our highest good or their highest good. They are there to use whoever they can. That one is a hard one. And it's one that I personally have struggled with, and I have learned to set very hardcore boundaries immediately when I start seeing the proof of what's going on. When you start seeing the proof that someone is using you in any way, shape, or form, you have to set a hardcore boundary with you that that is not acceptable and that you are going to cut that relationship off. It's hard, but I have faith in you. I have faith in you. You can do it. This is another reason why I say to cover your own ass. Everything in writing. Just saying. You ready for the next one? I had to take a deep breath for a minute. How do you notice yourself self-sabotaging the things that you're doing in your work, family, friends, relationships? How do you notice yourself self-sabotaging? And we all do it. Don't think some people are immune, because we all do it. We all do it. Whether it's through procrastination with our job, or whether it's through kind of a little light gaslighting because that's the only relationship we've ever been in and that's what we've learned. Whether it's yawning at inopportune times. We all self-sabotage. We all do. Procrastination is probably the biggest one. Because, I mean, nobody really wants to do the things sometimes. We want to do the thing at the end, but we don't really want to do the things because that's work. Procrastination is the biggest thing. And let me give you guys just a little hint, a little tip how to kind of instantly combat procrastination. Okay? I've explained this to a ton of people over the years. I heard it in a TED talk. Oh my God, a long time ago. As I yawn again. As a kid, how many times did you play a game and someone said, 1, 2, 3, go, and you instantly were gone? When I said 1, 2, 3, go, just then, were you ready to do this? Think about it. We have been taught from the time we were a baby to hear 1, 2, 3, go. And to just, it elicits a physical response when you hear someone say 1, 2, 3, and then go. It elicits an emotional and a physical and a mental response in you when you hear 1, 2, 3, go. You can literally use that trained response to stop procrastinating. I started using this a long time ago with my last big girl job where I had to get up and be at work at 7 a.m. I'm not a morning person at all. I sound like Kathleen Turner's ugly stepsister when I wake up. And I don't want to people. It doesn't matter if I have tea or coffee or pop or whatever. I don't want to people. I don't want to get up. I want to cuss the alarm and I want to hit snooze about 9 times, possibly 11. So I had to figure out a way to get my ass out of bed and get to work by 7. I remembered that TED Talk. So once the alarm went off, I would lay there for a second. I would give myself 3 seconds, take a deep breath, just feel the blankets for a minute, and then 1, 2, 3, go. And on go, I would flip the blanket off and I would get up in one swift motion. Because once I was out of bed, I wasn't going to get back in bed. Now, that's a kind of interesting way to use it, funny way to use it, but I guarantee you it'll work. If you start to catch yourself during the day drifting, I don't want to finish this project, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, you can say 1, 2, 3, go. You can put it in your head. You can even say it out loud. Say it to your kids. Be like, okay, this is a race. You ready? Make it a competition. Make it a competition with yourself. It will help you stop procrastinating. Will it cure it? No. But it will help. One of the points of tonight's class is because I know everyone has a hard time setting boundaries. As I yawn again. Everyone has a hard time setting boundaries. It took me a long time to learn how to healthily set boundaries. And now when I set boundaries with people, it's very apparent very quickly who is the toxic person in that situation. It's very apparent very quickly who does not have a healthy self-respect, who does not have the ability to handle other people's boundaries. People that do not have a healthy self-respect, people that do not understand or respect boundaries with themselves or with others will instantly get angry when you set a boundary with them. Even if it's a teeny tiny little small boundary, they will instantly get angry. They will lash out. They will say horrible things. They will trash your name. They will do whatever they can because you have hurt their pride, their self-esteem, or you have called them on their bullshit. Someone just asked, can you become the toxic person from not setting boundaries? Absolutely, you can. That is a fantastic question. Absolutely, you can. Because if you never set boundaries, you are now allowing that toxic behavior to continue. You are becoming the enabler. You are now codependent. That is a very toxic place to be. If you never set boundaries with someone who's toxic, it allows them to continue that behavior. And unfortunately, it cements that relationship to you. And if you do ever get out of that relationship, you will find one exactly like it because you have been cemented into thinking that that is a healthy relationship. Setting boundaries isn't fun at first. It's not. I will tell you guys something kind of comical. You guys know that I've been single for several years. I'm dating someone now, but I've been single. I was single for several years. It doesn't take long on a dating app or just talking to somebody to determine what kind of person they are. And unfortunately, in the area that I live in, most of the members of the opposite sex here want someone who is dependent. They want someone who is going to do or say whatever they want them to do, etc. I learned that one of my absolute favorite ways to set a boundary and dismiss someone from my life was to say, I am not the girl for you, with a smile on my face. And you would love some of the responses I got from that. Sometimes it was just, nope, absolutely not. And sometimes it was sudden backtracking with, whoa, 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 blah, 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 blah. But I made it very clear to myself that once I said, I am not the girl for you, that was a boundary. And once those words came out of my mouth, there was not any going back. And I have rolled that over to my business. If I have someone who is a client who is, ordering something, ordering services or whatever, and they become toxic, y'all, I have, on TikTok, you're going to get trolls. You're going to get toxic people that it's part of social media. However, when it comes to my business and my website, if I have people that are abusing my staff, if I have people that are abusing me, if I have people that are cussing me out or whatever, there's a way to talk about things. There's a way to talk about any issues that arise without that. I will absolutely fire someone and I will tell them a very similar thing to that. I will say, I am not the spiritual advisor for you. I wish you the best. Or I will say, I know that you will find the right person to teach you and I wish you the best. If I have told somebody that, my staff knows. If they see that in a message that I have told someone, I am not the spiritual advisor for you. I wish you the best. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you find what you're looking for is also another little keyword of mine, that is it. That I will no longer work with that person. I will not ship them anything. I will refund any money they send immediately. That's it. That's a boundary. I highly recommend that you guys come up with something like that. Feel free to use mine. I'm giving it to you happily. I am not the girl for you. I am not the guy for you. I am not the person for you. I am not the plumber for you. I am not the advisor for you. I am not XYZ. Set that boundary. And once you have set that boundary, you have to start with yourself. Once you have set that boundary with someone that I am not the spiritual advisor for you, I hope you find what you're looking for, do not go back on it. Do not go back on it. That is the boundary that you have to set with yourself first. The boundary has already been set with the person. Hey, dude, I am not the girl for you. We don't need to date. And then 2 weeks later, when they message you and they are like, oh, I'm so sorry, and blah, 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 there is no answer because I've already set that boundary. Blocking people is a boundary. Not answering is a boundary. It's hard and it makes you feel like a dick, but it's a boundary. And you need to respect yourself enough to set boundaries. When you start setting boundaries and you respect yourself enough to do that and protect you, you will find that your inner peace goes through the roof. You will find that your self respect goes through the roof. You will find that all of the things around you that had been worrying you and stressing you out suddenly won't do that as much. Setting boundaries is tough, especially with yourself. But guess what? I absolutely have faith in every single one of you. I do. I was in a horribly abusive marriage for almost 15 years, and I had a problem breaking free of it because the boundary with myself. It took me too long to realize that I was the one that held the key to getting out of that relationship, no one else. It didn't matter how old my children were. It didn't matter what house I lived in. It didn't matter what job I had. There was never going to be a better time. If you continue to wait, well, I'll wait till my kid gets in middle school. I'll wait till my kid gets in high school. I'll wait till my kid graduates. I'll wait till my kid goes to college. I'll wait till my kid gets married. There's always going to be another but. The same is true with a job. Well, I'll look for another job, when my boss says that one more time. I'll start looking for another job, when blah, 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 blah. There's always going to be another but, another when, another. You have to set that boundary with you first, or you will continue to be in that situation over and over and over and over and over. Boundaries are hard. But once you start setting them, they become easier and easier, and you will feel more adulty than you ever have in your adulty life, I promise. Setting boundaries is a power move. Setting boundaries is a shadow work move. Setting boundaries allows you to step out of toxic relationships. Setting boundaries allows you to not allow people to abuse your kindness, your trust, your love, yourself. And I have faith in you, and I know that you can do it. Okay? Every single Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time, I'm right here on TikTok and YouTube with Shadow Work Philosophy. And for those of you guys that are watching me on TikTok, please make sure that you follow, that you join every Monday. And for those of you guys that follow me here on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe and like this video. I appreciate it. And if you don't follow me on YouTube, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I'm just saying what I'm saying.